All right. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to present here. I'm trying to think. I was trying to think how many times I've presented at the City Engine user meeting. It's got to be 5 times at least. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Devin Lavigne. I am a partner of House C. Lavigne. We are an urban planning and geospatial firm. I'm sitting in Chicago, Illinois. Our planning practice is primarily domestic in the United States, although our work in City Engine has brought us around the globe. And the talk I'd like to give is about the Wake Forest Downtown Master Plan and how City Engine played an integral part in making a case for additional height and density within their downtown. I'm going to use a story map. It's not, it's been a while since I've actually presented on a story map. So someone please tell Francis Kelly, my partner manager at Esri, that we're using this. And I should say, House C. Lavigne, we are a gold Esri partner. And I think one of the ways we make a difference in the partner community is really through showcasing our work and showing what's possible with GIS. And so we're not a partner that sells a lot of software. I think we're a partner that really kind of turns on light bulbs. And so hopefully you're inspired by the talk and our use of City Engine in Wake Forest. So with that, I will kind of begin scrolling. And so we worked on the downtown master plan. And what that was, it was, we had helped the Wake Forest community with a citywide master plan. And throughout that process, we identified the importance of downtown to the community and that it needed more specific recommendations. And so typically when you're working on a citywide plan, you're not at a scale that allows you to get in so tight to make real specific recommendations. And that's what downtown needed. And so the follow-up was for a downtown plan. So for those of you not familiar with Wake Forest, it's north of Raleigh, and it's in what's called the Research Triangle. There's an area in North Carolina that is kind of between North Carolina State University, Duke University, and University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And those three schools create this sort of triangle. And within it is a lot of activity. I think just about every technology company is here. Google and Apple just made big investments. Microsoft, I think, has always been here. Epic Games, Unreal Engine is based here. The Research Triangle itself, 7,000 acres between Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. It's been around since 1959, but it is driving a lot of growth and investment within this part of the United States. Wake Forest is just located a little northeast of there. Wake Forest was originally founded as a college town. For those of you who follow March Madness, Wake Forest is kind of always in the tournament. That school has since relocated to another community, but it was founded in Wake Forest. Population of Wake Forest presently is about 50,000 people, but there's a ton of growth pressure headed to this area, which is what sort of created the need for the comprehensive plan and then ultimately the downtown plan. When we look at what downtown Wake Forest is, it's the historic sort of, we say, the cultural heart of the community. Downtowns are often the places that kind of belong to every resident. It's where you go get something to eat and or go grab a drink and go shopping. So downtown Wake Forest is a walkable mix of shops, restaurants, civic buildings, a lot of historic architecture, active streetscapes, and like a real strong sense of place and community. And so the community holds it near and dear to its heart, but I think there's also a need to kind of give it a shot in the arm and a little bit of incentive to become a little more of what it is. So they'd like to see a little more growth, and they also see it as an opportunity to broaden the mix of housing within the community. Just looking at this aerial, you can see it's predominantly a single-family community. There are some townhomes along the fringe, and then you have some zero lot line development here off to the east. But in terms of multifamily development, there's not a lot in the community, and so the opportunity here is for mixed-use development. So when we set out to do the Wake Forest downtown plan as a planning firm, we look at sort of all aspects of a community. So starting with population, this is the projected population of Wake County. And so the town itself grew 8 times between 1990 and 2022. So 760% increase. So they've just a ton of growth over 30 years. Looking into the future, they're seeing projected to grow from just under 1 million in 2020 to 1.5 million in 2040. So in 20 years, about 50% growth is what we're looking at projecting for the town. We look at things like income. This is comparing the Wake Forest community to Wake County, the larger area, and then to the state of North Carolina. And this is the change in income in the last just 11 years. So you can see significant growth in the greater than 150,000 demographic, and the lower income is negative growth. And so the community's becoming more affluent, the county's becoming more affluent, but so is the state. And it's all driven by employment in that research triangle that I mentioned. So just looking at the change in primary jobs, 94% change in primary jobs. So the community is becoming more white collar, more and more affluent, and especially compared to the county and the state. And then we look at the number of new jobs. The largest growth is in retail, which aren't necessarily high-paying jobs, but across the board, we pick up every stone. And so there's a lot more jobs in retail than there are in the office. And so when we look at that, but one of the things this does tell us is that Wake Forest has a need for a mix of housing. Not everybody is working in the triangle. Some people are working retail, some people are working in accommodations and food service. And so just kind of looking through everything, we know we needed to provide a mix of housing types. And so it wasn't just a bedroom community that was commuting out to the triangle, but there's people here that that aren't making 6 figures that still want to call Wake Forest home. We did a detailed assessment of the character and the charm of the community. When we're planning for this area, we want to make sure it doesn't lose its character or its charm. And so just to kind of walk through what this environment looks like. And I'll just call attention to some things that you'll see that we modeled out in CityEngine. You can see the sidewalk here changes into, you have a slate stone on the right, and then a more traditional cobblestone or brick in the interior, and on all of that you'll see manifested into our CityEngine work. But this is downtown Wake Forest, murals kind of scattered out on buildings, shepherd's crook like poles with signs, lots of landscaping. This is their city hall. Newer construction, but still took a cues from the older styles with the brick. And so this is what Wake Forest downtown looks like today. And another thing that's happening is the potential for transit-oriented development. There's a project called the S-Line that's going to connect Richmond, Virginia to Raleigh. And you'll see here there's a stop in Wake Forest. So the current passenger service, there is no direct route from Richmond, Virginia You can take a train from Richmond down to Savannah, Georgia, and even into Florida, but to come into the state of North Carolina. And so this S line is this new route that would go from Richmond, and Wake Forest is the first stop north of Raleigh. So providing commuter potential, if you will, for people in Wake Forest to commute into downtown Raleigh by rail. So there's potential for some transit-oriented development. This is what that corridor looks like today. This is off to the left is where downtown Wake Forest is situated. And it's a freight, right now it's just freight rail that will become passenger service. So that was another catalytic project coming to downtown Wake Forest. And so we looked at the impact of transit, both from, this is where the train station would be located. And this is that quarter-mile walk shed. And then the half-mile walk shed is that blue line. And the downtown boundary are study areas in black. And so about half is within a half mile to the train station, particularly up on the north edge. But there is a bus rapid transit that would service the transit station that would provide sort of a TOD potential. So transit was a driver too. So now jumping into what we're here for, CityEngine, and how we used it. This was our first sort of chance to play with Street Designer. So this, when Street Designer was in beta, we modeled out the different streets within the community. I mentioned the sidewalk. You could see our CityEngine rules. We did our best to kind of recreate the existing streetscape in the community. And then we modeled out the existing streets, and then what we would do within that same right-of-way to accommodate a more authentic pedestrian-oriented downtown environment, adding things like bike lanes, wider sidewalks. And there was also talk about like a road diet on some of the streets. So narrowing the pavement. So Elm Street is the existing configuration. There's an 18-foot travel lane. So let's see, call that 6 meters, way wider than any train or any car would need. And so we redesigned all of those cross sections using CityEngine to kind of take advantage of the existing right-of-way. Height and density was also something that was key. When you look at an area top down in plain view, it's tough to see grade. And so part of this project, we used a drone and ArcGIS drone to map out. So you can see in this map, those orange lines is the flight of our drone. And let's see, I'll use the controls. So this is kind of where we flew it, and every blue dot is where our drone takes a picture. And if I click on that, I can see this is the drone imagery for Wake Forest. And if I want to go at that image, and what Drone to Map does is it helps kind of automate the process, and you stitch it together, and you get things like a beautiful 3D mesh, updated 3D mesh of the area. And all of this is constructed inside of Drone to Map. Still not the fidelity we needed, but was still helpful for us when we're modeling out these buildings. We don't live in Wake Forest, so when we visit North Carolina, we take as many photos as we can, and this 3D mesh helped us accurately model 3D existing conditions. The big value to us, though, is the point cloud, and by default you get this kind of you call this RGB. You're just coloring those points the predominant color of the pixel from what the image sees. But if I assign elevation to those pixels, I'm able to kind of see, and if I kind of zoom out, you can see the red shades are high. And so this part along White Street, it really drops down to like a bowl down here. We were sort of working with the community to add height in the lower areas, knowing that White Street is the spine. We had an opportunity to add height on the west side of downtown in kind of that area that's sat lower. And so just using, this kind of 3D GIS helped us tell that story to convince the community that, as the grade drops off, there was an opportunity to add additional height and density. And so our plan had, diagrams like this, where I mentioned White Street. This is White Street here on the left. And you can see how the grade drops off as you get towards Taylor Street. And so, a two-story building in White Street, as you move across, we're able to get 6 stories on Taylor and still not be visible or as high. It can be hard to communicate these concepts when you're working with, with the public. And so what we did is we held downtown visioning sessions with the community. Throughout this process, we held them in all different types of public venues. This one, we used the fire station. The fire department allowed us to use station number 1 for a vision workshop. So we asked people, what their vision was for downtown, and we roll out maps and magic markers, and we kind of help work with the community to kind of help them tell us what they envision for downtown. And that's sort of our job as urban planning consultants, is not to just come into a community and impose our vision on a city that we have visited but we don't live in. It's to listen to the residents, to the stakeholders, find out what they want to achieve, and help them create the community that they want for themselves. And so the visioning process, we're looking for people to share their ideas and to put pen to paper and to draw stuff out. And we take all of that and we synthesize it into a plan. What we learned was that downtown Wake Forest wasn't just one area. It actually had what we call functional sub areas. You have that historic White Street where you have all of those buildings up against the sidewalk. And then the Brook Street infill to us was the biggest opportunity for additional development. This is where the grade is starting to sort of crater out. And then even all the way to Wade Avenue, Franklin Street into the Civic Center area. This White Street extension we viewed as an opportunity to extend the existing pattern of White Street, so 2 to 3 story buildings. And then the southeast transition is where we're starting to move into the residential areas of the community, and the energy from downtown is starting to dissipate, and the distance to the new TOD, which is sort of right where that label is located. So we created 2D plans. You can see the future mobility hub with this sort of walkway over the railroad. That was going to be the new transit station. And then we started to add in these catalyst sites, these kind of buildings that would be sort of wrapped around a parking garage, and we're looking for more height. And so in plain view, this looks fine, but when we start to talk about the number of stories, it kind of scares people, and they don't know how tall we're talking. And so for that, we use CityEngine to build an immersive 3D model. And so our workflow went from ArcGIS Pro to CityEngine, and then ultimately into the Unreal Engine, where we built an application with Epic Games Unreal Engine, use an Xbox controller. So that process, starts in Pro. We need to make sure the data has as many attributes that we think we're going to need downstream inside of CityEngine. Makes our life easier. And so attributing inside of Pro is helpful. We can create thematic maps, but we're also giving our CityEngine rule files attributes that we can hook onto to drive our 3D shapes inside of CityEngine. And so as a foundational piece of software here, we mapped it out in Pro. From there, we bring it into CityEngine. So the initial import kind of looks like, this is a little further along because the streets are there, but I'll kind of just walk you through how we use the procedural modeling inside of CityEngine to achieve this. And so we use the procedural rules to model all different things, depending on what we were, from the parking lots, the streets, parking garages, new development, existing development. And so we did have to model existing conditions. And then because we were building a plan, we had to show them where we started today and we had to contrast it to sort of what we wanted and what we envisioned for the downtown. And so building on that, using the scenarios inside of CityEngine helped us sort of keep those geometries in separate buckets to sort of plan out the infill development for downtown. And so just a quick build. There's our aerial. We drop in that street network. We wanted to control things like parking lot entrances, and so you'll see these little stubs where we connect onto other geometry. From there, you could see the initial shapes coming out of CityEngine for the street, as well as existing buildings, and then just simple massing. And apply the rules, and then ultimately inside of the Unreal Engine, this was our work product. So this is the existing condition inside of Unreal. And then we didn't want the community, the whole point of this exercise was to discuss height and density. And we didn't want them critiquing architecture. I mentioned that the Wake Forest new town hall, picked up on some of the cues of the historic building. I think an architect might challenge me on that, and that's okay. But what we didn't want was the community sort of bogging down on things like window size, placement, color, brick materials. We wanted the discussion around height and density. And so inside of Unreal, we just sort of blocked these out like this. So that kind of process, and ArcGIS Online kind of serves as a hub for a lot of this. So all of the base maps and everything from Pro get published into Online. We also publish some of the scene layer packages to Online. So using ArcGIS as our foundation. There's a piece of software called the ArcGIS Maps SDK. Rex Hansen team built it and allows you to stream in content from ArcGIS Online right into the Unreal Engine, as well as, and then what capabilities don't exist, we use the REST API inside of Unreal. I don't know if I lost my share. Looks like I did. There it goes. Okay. And then some of the geometry goes directly from CityEngine directly into Unreal. So there's some geometry that's so complicated, we just, it doesn't make sense to store it online. And it has things like different material channels. And so, yeah, real quick, this is kind of this high resolution export from Unreal that kind of shows our existing conditions. This is downtown Wake Forest, and this is the massing that we had put into the plan. So substantially changing downtown, I would say, and with a high propensity. But one of the things that we wanted to do was we used Vitruvio, which is a plugin made by the CityEngine team that installs into the Epic Games Unreal Engine. And what that does, and I'll kind of I'll highlight it here. So I've highlighted this yellow building here off on the left, and you can see I have a Vitruvio component that gets attached to that. And if you look down beneath, it is all the attributes of my CityEngine rule. So you package your rule as an RPK, and then you bind it to this Vitruvio component inside of Unreal. So the number of stories here is 5. And so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When it changes to 15, I changed it to 10. You can see now. And so what you're able to do is bring your rule files right into the Unreal Engine and control those variables. And now I'm in the Unreal editor here. This is, but what you'll see in a video I'll show is we expose them as controls. And so inside of the game, you're able to manipulate those CityEngine objects. So it did help shape critical policy. In March of last year, we had participants show up, and there was a playable version of downtown. So we handed the Xbox controller to the residents, allowed them to kind of run around downtown, click on those buildings and use that Vitruvial plugin to model out height. So here's a photo of a resident kind of walking through downtown Wake Forest. He's got his Xbox controller and he's just sort of exploring the area and looking at how he felt about height. The gentleman in the suit is Jack Carso, works at House of Lavigne. He's there assisting and guiding him through it. And we recognize not everyone can walk through and use an Xbox controller to manipulate a first-person gaming environment. So Jack was there to kind of take people through it. You can actually see the little slider, total floors. That's the Vitruvial plugin and how we expose it at runtime, so people can just sort of drag that slider up. And so visual quality here we thought was important. You could see the sidewalk signs and the tree grates. And then when we got to the massing, we wanted to take the attention away from the architecture and just focus on things like height. And most importantly, when people were down along White Street, and you can kind of see it good here. In a minute, Matt, you can run that video. But like right here, White Street, did they want to see this building over top? And that's why I changed purple. Change purple because it's more than a certain number of floors is visible to the camera. And so the camera in Unreal will color that purple. And so at the 6th floor height from this location, that floor would get turned that magenta color. So there's a couple of videos to kind of end it. We're a little bit of a lag with GoToWebinar, so I think Matt has them preloaded. So the first video is just a fly around to kind of show off the full environment inside of Unreal. So the UI, we give people the ability to see existing buildings, proposed buildings, or activate fly mode or walk mode. It is a 1-to-1 scale, and so if you had to walk around this area, it might take you 30 minutes inside of a game environment. And then when you click on a building, if it has that Vitruvial component, that slider just kind of works and starts to change the building. And so just a quick little fry around. And there's also a little mini map in the top right-hand corner, help people orient themselves. And then Matt, if you run the next video was captured at the open house with a resident playing the game and you working the Vitruvial component to so you can see existing buildings. That's kind of a hole in the ground down there. You can see the street drops off. There's a change in grade of about 10 feet. You're able to sort of click on it and then walk anywhere and kind of see what that might look like. And again, as soon as they select that building, it becomes the Vitruvio activates, and then they're able to adjust the number of floors. And so huge success with this project. Everyone embraced up to 6 stories down on Taylor and the streets that are a little further below. And we learned through the process that White Street was what was critically important to the community. And so as long as the new construction wasn't so overbearing on White Street and so visible to White Street, and we're able to maintain that historic charm, that was they were supportive of. And so this tool and City Engine helped this community reach consensus on height and density. So that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Very, very cool. I mean, thanks for the presentation, and I love this one. It felt so natural now, this community engagement in general. It felt so natural. It felt like we're doing the research now, then we build the city, we basically we create the volumes, what is really important, then we go and present everything at to the public in different locations and ask the public and the citizens for the feedback. We present the stuff with gamepads and so on. It's like couple of years ago, this was the future, but it actually works now. And it feels, the first time I just had the feeling before with the story map, it feels effortless. It feels adopted. What's your, maybe you can comment a little bit on the journey of, since, I mean, you started with very similar projects long time ago, but now you added all of these techniques and technologies. And this time also with Vitruvio, for example, there's another jump in that it feels intuitive. What's your opinion on, or what's the journey which you experienced so far up to this point?
Yeah, it's an interesting question.
Mhm.
There's an expression I say, like, we need the right clients. You know, I think when I started House of Lavigne, you know, I'm 51, so I think I started House of Lavigne when I was 30, and I still had like ambitious visions and things, and I can remember us kind of thinking through ideas and pitching them to clients, and you know, we're kind of, you know, people 30 years older than me that are running these cities. You know, they're 60 years old, and even still now, you know, there's some people who still aren't ready for the technology. And the expression I say is, there are times where I feel like I'm Marty McFly playing the electric guitar at the prom. And, you know, it's like, hey, your kids are going to love this. You know, you're not ready for it, but your kids are going to love it. And we still come across that with some communities. What's that?
Where's the hoverboard?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. But then occasionally, you know, not occasionally, but more frequently, and it's happening more and more as kind of the people that are running our cities are becoming a generation that grew up playing video games. They embrace it, and they're like, "Oh my God, that would be awesome! Can you do that?" And so the journey, I think, you know, was met 6-7 years ago with a little more resistance, and now it's like, you know, we don't have to sell as hard the potential, and certainly having case study after case study starts to kind of, you know, getting the first client to buy into it. You know, you got to sell your vision, and which you can do without having examples to point to. You know, now we can send an unsolicited proposal, and we're doing this now. There's this old dying mall in the city, and we're telling them, we went and told the community, you know, you need to come up with a vision for this property, or someone's going to do it for you, and you might not like it. And so we sent them an unsolicited proposal to bring it through this exact process. We'll design it, we'll visualize it, we'll use City Engine for all the metrics and all the key numbers, and then we're going to put it into a game engine and bring it to life and show you what this dead mall could be. So yeah, I'd say the journey's been fun. It's been a little trying, but you know, just love all the work that the Esri and the City Engine team has been doing, and you know, from the new additions to Street Designer and Vitruvio and all these plugins that they keep adding. Just, you know, if we see an opportunity to help it improve our workflow, we grab it.
Yeah. Sweet. There's a question from Christian Kirkham. Thank you for the great presentations. What are your thoughts on the potential for 3D Gaussian splats / NURBS to increase the fidelity of existing buildings and infrastructure in City Engine or Unreal? Could this newer technology take the place of traditional photogrammetry scans or reduce the need to manually model existing buildings for your city models?
Yeah, absolutely. The Gaussian splat stuff and the stuff that Conrad and his team are building is awesome. And I'm excited to start working it into our workflows. We've been hesitant to embrace things like 3D meshes, because if I put a pawn on the ground and allow someone to pilot that pawn on the ground. A 3D mesh captured from the air, you start merging things like street trees into building facades and parked cars, and the sidewalk edge just looks like crap. Gaussian splats is the fidelity in there, kind of sees around and through objects, has the potential, I think, to change this, not knowing how masking might work and how we mask out existing areas and drop in new development. Definitely, I see it. A lot of the buildings, we had to manually model the existing condition buildings because of how strong the character was of that downtown. And so I think, the new technology that's coming might help us improve that workflow by integrating that and saving us some time. But for the existing, we got to get City Engine into those photogrammetry models. So it's going to be exciting. New challenge.
For Gaussian splats.
Yeah.
There's another question. Because I was forwarded this, maybe I was forwarded it, but it's coming from Simon. So question to Devin. Romain mentioned that working on the area between a street and a building is important. Are you doing anything special to have this looking nice or suitable to the project?
So between the sidewalk and the building?
Yeah, it's kind of the whole, like the facade line to the curbstone, basically this entire area with all the assets.
Yeah, so like, I guess a front setback or a front yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we pay attention to everything. When I was teaching at the University of Illinois, I used to teach with this woman who would teach students how to draw. And she used to say the key to drawing is seeing. And if you can see the details, you can draw the details. But if your eye's not able to see the details, you'll never be able to be a good drawer, because everything will just kind of look geometric and plain. And so I think even my early 3D work, I wasn't able to see the details and sort of. But when you're able to kind of see the details that make something authentic, it really helps kind of see the scene. And you look at the work Roman is doing, it's amazing. Like the details, like I see that and like I drool in terms of how, and your work too, Matt, is like just aspirational in the details that you two are both putting into your 3D work. The challenge I think that I have is I'm working so fast with so many different cities that, and it's not that those details don't matter. Conversation around height and density, I don't know if it's time well spent. And so we end up directing our time onto the parts that matter. And so if that area that you mentioned between the building and the sidewalk, if that was something that was critically important, I mean, we would definitely get in there and make sure that it was well done.
Yeah. Maybe I'm misinterpreting the question regarding this, because it was specifically referring to Romain, who's actually doing all of these, like solving everything and mishmashing all of the data together so that something consistent comes out of it, which looks realistic, right? But I would say that's almost, it's a different discipline, because if I was looking at some of the aspects of especially the last couple of visualizations which you showed, which show some of those downtown-ish areas, there are, and you pretty much started your presentation with it, that you're looking for the types of assets which actually are really important for the people to say, or to be able to root themselves in the digital model and say, yes, this is basically where I live. I would say it's a different type of approach of looking at things and training the eye and saying what are the necessary elements that are unique, and we build those. It's maybe a little bit less on the automation technical side, but it's a very similar, let's say, visual artistic process to be able to say what are the elements that citizens would want to say, okay, now it's believable that the place is theirs. That's a really tricky art to master.
Oh, it absolutely is a tricky art to master. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I called attention to the sidewalk, how there was slate and cobblestone. Like, we wanted to make sure we had those details. So when the resident was walking on it, it wasn't some simulation town that, it was downtown Wake Forest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I mean, even just the detail which you mentioned, that there one side of the curbstone is gray slates, and the other one is basically reddish brown brick, which you showed before.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not aware of that. If you would ask them, you just, like 2 minutes ago, what was the surface that you walked on? People are not able to realize, right? Yeah. But it makes that place a place, right?
There's the term I use is like visually unsettling. So while they may not know what material they just walked on, if you showed them a photo where, hey, here's the street you just walked down on, and let's say you photoshopped it, you just had it just be just straight cement, gray cement, they would look at it and they may not know what's wrong with it, but there's going to be something there that's visually unsettling to them, and they can't put their finger on it. And I see that a lot. It's like, I can't put my finger on it, but something's not right. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Your sidewalk is cobblestone and slate, not cement. And then they'd be like, yeah, that's it. So a lot of people don't know what they've missed. And so the term that we use here, John Houseel and I, is just like, it's just visually unsettling. Something's not right. They don't know what. And it's up to us as the designers to kind of make sure the details are in there, because we know that they're not going to be able to tell us what details are missing. They're just going to tell us this doesn't look right.
Yeah, but and that's part of the difficulty of, because you need to anticipate which parts are not so important, but some of the things which are unsettling, they may be too or overly unsettling, which may even kind of make people like hate a design or hate a picture, but not being able to pinpoint it. So the anticipation of the, let's say, the psychological aspect of what are the important things and what not, and how do you visualize that stuff and that goes way beyond just, here's a realistic building where you can basically, or a realistically textured building, and you see it's 4 windows and it's or it's 5 windows, and that may be off, or it's too concrete in the sense, and let's say a yellow block, just talking about the density, that's one level because it's super obvious, but the rest is also or almost as important in the to be able to, like, it's a meta discussion, or it's a meta communication, because the things need to feel right.